One of the things I want to focus on in January right now is going over previous things from last year's DFS year, because we're still having teams and drivers and everything get settled for what they're going to do this year. And I want to look at things in a more visual aspect. I think a really apparent way to do that, and a great place to start doing that, is looking at plate races. Yes, I'm going to have some Atlanta footage here, but I still believe Atlanta should be its own animal. It should be its own thing in a corner. I don't think we have enough data to accurately understand what Atlanta is. I think it's going to take us around 3 years, 6 races, or 3 years of 6 races for the Cup Series, 5 or 6 for Xfinity, so on and so forth for Truck, to understand really how that race is going to shake up, because drivers are still understanding that track. When we look back at plate racing in general, when you look at the 90s, 2000s, 2010s, we see trends, and we see drivers that have certain attributes to them that lend them to being good plate racers. Okay, Senior, for example, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Tony Stewart, who I truly believe doesn't get enough credit, who gets thrown out because of what he did his last 6 years. But in terms of when drivers actually had more skill involved, 2000s, early 2010s, compared to now, he was up there. And we can see certain things in the field today, whether it be guys who ride in the back, who race smart and then finish up front, like David Reagan is a great example of a guy who has a ton of super speedway skill. And this isn't just of, David Reagan has some skill, we need to play this guy, so-and-so. Like, when we actually look at these races, we actually see guys show skill, show reasons either to play them or why the field should play them, and why, at least for me, I understand why it's dangerous not playing certain guys. Like, for example, I will always fade Denny Hamlin, although this video is going to be primarily about Denny Hamlin because he is so good. This is a situation to where we need to be aware of certain things. A lot of people don't rewatch races. A lot of people don't rewatch old races. A lot of people don't really understand that plate racing is not just some guy getting lucky. These guys surviving wrecks, getting lucky. Yeah, sure it is. You got to survive the wreck to be there. But you need to put yourself in positions to actually gain position, specifically at the end of races. Okay, and so I have 5 examples here that I really want to talk about, show really fast. So let's kind of go over these, and let's just kind of have some fun here. Okay, let's head all the way back to the year of our Lord 2001. Okay, when we get 8 to go in the 2001 EA Sports 500, I want you to notice Stewart and Labonte. Now, I understand that they're teammates. You're going to have Labonte go with Stewart whenever he jumps out, but Kenseth buckles up, or not buckles up, but he stacks up a little bit. And look at Stewart. Stewart and Labonte and everybody had been running single file for really the last 8 laps before this instance right here. Stewart understands it's time to go. And look, you have Junior up front. He understands what he's doing. And you look at Junior having like 6 of 10 top 5 finishes in the early 2000s at Talladega. You also have Stewart with 6 of, I think it was 11 top 10 finishes. And Stewart even finished I think he didn't finish worse than top 7 in his first 11 races at Talladega. It's insane how well Stewart and Junior ran here, but nobody remembers Stewart because he just always finished second to Junior. But when you look like Labonte, made an issue, made a mistake, didn't stay behind Stewart. These guys are making mistakes. Junior understands what lane to block, what to do. Tony also understands what to do to not lose his momentum. And the reason why this is important, because LaJoie makes a very similar mistake this year at Atlanta that we're going to focus on here. Why am I focusing on these old races? Okay, this is when skill, in my opinion, was at the very top of what you need to do at a plate race to be up front. Okay, now clearly, we get to the big wreck at the end of this race and things like that, but I just wanted to point that out of what Stewart did, what Junior's doing. Why are those guys still there? Labonte made an issue by not following Stewart earlier in the run on the outside line, but he was still able to get back up there. Granted, it was due to what Joe Gibbs was bringing at the time, but Labonte was always up there as well at these races. Kenny Wallace, the 55 car, who not only helped Kenny Wallace finish second to Dale Earnhardt in his last win at Talladega, yet again, that program bringing a lot of speed to the track at the time. Why am I focusing on this type of stuff? Well, let's move on. Let's look at 2008, Aaron's 499, and these just happened to be Talladega because it was flat. You're able to actually see what drivers are doing. Daytona was more of a handling racetrack at the time. But who was up here? Who was up here understanding the tandem draft? Who was out here pioneering the tandem draft? It was 2 drivers. It was Dale Jr., and it was Denny Hamlin. Way back when, Denny Hamlin is a young little boy, all right, little small boy up there, understanding what you need to do to get up there, understanding how to drive up there. Yet again, hey, Stewart's up there as well. Hamlin, understanding that, hey, this is actually a way to gain speed. Now, at this point, they didn't understand that you could actually just lock them the entire time. Even at this point, NASCAR was very much pulling an ARCA situation where they didn't want bumping in the corners, but at this point, nobody really understood that you could just lock bumpers and run through the corner. We would see that, mature more and more in 2009, 2010, 2011, things like that. But when we look at these drivers, Denny Hamlin, Tony Stewart, and why am I focused on Denny Hamlin so much? Is because I truly believe Denny Hamlin is probably the third or fourth best plate racer we've seen. And I have to mention that in a span of the last 30 years. Granted, when we have 80 races in the 80s, 70s, 60s, a completely different beast in general between the races and the pack racing that we started seeing in the 90s to now. I think that is where we want to really look at that. And I would put Hamlin as probably the third or fourth best driver on there. Now, when we get to here, I want to show an example of what not to do and things that people don't focus in on enough. This was Atlanta. This is the second Atlanta race this year. We have Corey LaJoie here, who has no idea what he's doing. Okay, that's just how it is. When we look at the starting, this is the final restart with 3 to go. I think these situations are very, very good to see what drivers can actually do. Okay, we have LaJoie, Truex, Elliott, Chastain as your 4 guys here. I want you to notice, when we just look back at those races and when we look back at the Coca-Cola 600 from this year, you're going to see people up there blocking the lead who actually know what they're doing. LaJoie has never been up there before, okay? I understand some of you guys like LaJoie. I try and keep my bias about him to the side, but this is an example of something that I want to show you that drivers just don't know what to do, okay? Where do you get this practice from anymore? You have to run Xfinity races. Why? And you even see that Haley kind of struggles with it in the Coke 600 or in the Coke 400 from this year, just due to the fact that it races different from the Xfinity car, but Corey LaJoie, you can't get this experience in practice anymore. You have to be up there. You're not going to be up there because you're going to end up making these mistakes. Okay, so when we look at 2 to go and we look at the mistakes that LaJoie makes, and granted, yes, this is the second Atlanta race. We're still trying to understand where the runs come from, and I mean that in a very loose term. We understand how they work, but LaJoie stays up here to put himself in a position and throws this race away by just terrible decisions. He has the inside lane. He's going to be pushed by Corey LaJoie, and you can just see that LaJoie is, not Corey LaJoie, or Chastain, you're seeing that Chastain is just pushing him wildly, okay? He already loses the guy on his outside line. This is his race to lose at this point. You can blame it on his spotter, you can blame it on him, but what he makes here in these next 2 laps are just absolute poor decisions, okay? And this is not me, Monday morning quarterback. We're analyzing this from why we want to focus on guys, why you kind of want to avoid certain people. Like, I don't know why he doesn't block Elliott there. I understand Elliott can go below you, but when you look back at how the middle lane had been so dominant all day, carrying that speed on the outside lane, it makes absolutely no sense. LaJoie then again makes another mistake here. Okay, so at this point it's going to be him and Chase Elliott. It is LaJoie's to lose here. LaJoie doesn't know where to go. He doesn't move up in front of the 43 until it is far too late, and he fences himself. He absolutely fences himself. It is all LaJoie's fault right here. I don't know why he goes to the outside of Elliott, because he doesn't know what he's doing. He hasn't been in the situation before. It was all LaJoie here. When you look at how Atlanta had been racing before that, the leaders, yes, you would have the leaders wreck each other either by getting loose or by guys blowing tires and stuff like that. But when you look at what caused this exact situation here was the lack of experience that Corey LaJoie had in this situation. 2 other things I want to focus on here as we're 8 minutes into the video. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching and everything and having fun. This is Denny Hamlin's onboard from the 2021 Coke 400. Okay. We have around 9 laps here. We end up having a wreck that involves Hamlin here and ends up taking him, or at least he's involved in the wreck. But I want to show you this. People don't like, this is a sin. 966 views. People aren't watching this stuff, and it's insane. Okay, this is at 1.5, right? Let me go ahead and move this up to 1.5. He is starting at least on the 10th row, if not farther out, outside the top 10 for sure. We understand, and this, like I said, I like looking at how drivers run when they are absolutely gun to the back of their head. The race is going to end. Very similar to this year's race that ended in the rain, or that had that rain incident. Automatically, guys in the outside lane, no clue what they're doing. absolute no clue, no idea. You can see Hamlin racing very selfish here, which is what we want to see from a plate racer, okay? Which is why I do enjoy playing Stenhouse. I think Stenhouse and Hamlin have much more in common than people want to realize because, yes, Stenhouse has caused more wrecks, but they are very much the same driver. Chase Elliott as well understands what to do to get up there. And just seriously, pay attention. Like you see this. You see Daytona as a situation where you're just not going to find a lot of lanes to work with, especially late in this race here. Guys are going to want to train the outside lane. You're not going to be able to do much here. I mean, this is an absolute masterclass of why Hamlin is one of the best plate racers to ever come across the sport of NASCAR. Okay? I understand. You might be bored. Why are we watching this? Why are we watching game film on a plate race, Brandon? That makes no sense at all. Because it's truly a work of art. Like, sure, you might look at, when you're looking at your little spreadsheets and you see top 10s, top 5s, whatever the case is, that doesn't tell you the whole story. You have to absolutely watch these races, understand why people are in these situations, understand what is putting them in here. This situation where Hamlin and Elliott both started in very, very poor positions here. The outside lane has done nothing wrong. Okay? Meanwhile, these guys really by themselves, yes, they've had draft up front, but really Elliott and Hamlin by themselves has ran up to the front. Like, are you guys not impressed by this? Like, what are we doing here? Like, this is so impressive that people, they'll just toss it up as, Hamlin's a good plate racer, but who else is doing this type of stuff? You can watch races, but it's really Hamlin, Elliott, Blaney, and I would argue Stenhouse, and then some of the guys who usually run in the back and take advantage of it late in the race. And we'll even talk about that when we look back at the back markers who were basically forced to run in the Coca-Cola 400 last year, or in the Coke Zero 400 last year, and why they weren't able to move up there. But you got to admit, this is absolutely incredible racing by Hamlin. It's wild. Hamlin is absolutely here to win. He understands what he's doing. He understands when to go up top. He understands, Joey, you ain't going to get around me, boy. I got this. I'm going to finish your ass. Like, Hamlin is one of the best racers ever. Now, this does end in a wreck when guys start getting up here more and more. We end up having some stupid stuff happen. And these guys just keep trying to fence themselves and stuff. And this ends up being the big wreck that starts the green-white checkered in that race. But let's go ahead and look at last year's Coke Zero 400. This is with 26 laps to go, which realistically would end up being 3 to go before it started raining. Let's look at it right here. Justin Haley, yes, has been absolutely phenomenal at Xfinity Series in the or on plate races, specifically at Daytona. When we look at his experience in these cars, yes, he has the win at Daytona. Yes, he has ran up front. But when you're here, your ass is to the flame. You got a gun to the back of your head. You absolutely need to defend. You're seeing that he just kind of lacks experience. That's just how it is. Kyle Busch. We've seen Kyle Busch be up front a lot. When you look back at the 2008 499, you saw that Kyle Busch early in a race was a big mover. He hasn't always finished races, but Kyle Busch understands how to get up there. When we look at Eric Almirola, okay, a guy who has had phenomenal plate finishes that aren't necessarily wins, very consistent finisher between 3rd and 7th place. You'll see Eric Almirola have a lot of those, specifically at Talladega. What is putting these guys here? They understand what they're doing. And when you look at this here, and you look at how racers just drive on these tracks, you can predict how this is going to happen. You can see that, yes, Haley is going to block quite a bit, but he'll probably be forced out of line or moved out of line at some point. We're going to see Eric Almirola be up there, run in the top 4, but not have the not have the aggression to get the lead, okay? We have Stenhouse. We have Buescher. We have Kyle Busch. Guys that are going to be up there, we're going to probably see mistakes. Who is here? It's Denny Hamlin. Gun to the back of your head. Race is on the line. Rain is on the way. Who do you think is going to get up to the front? Okay, it's absolutely wild. As I said, Haley's going to block. Probably going to do it successfully. Very similar to Noah Gragson. When we look at Gragson in the Xfinity Series, he understands how to block. He understands how to get there. He's going to make a mistake at some point. We always see Gragson make at least 2 very close to fatal errors in the pack at Daytona and Talladega. And we're seeing that with Haley, who has a ton of experience in the Xfinity Series, but not necessarily in the next-gen car. Okay? In my opinion, a bad move going to the bottom there with Suarez. He would have maintained much more speed staying up top with Eric Almirola. They would have been side by side right here. And leaving it to basically have Suarez just draft him and come around him. Like, I don't know why you would do that here. So we see Haley make a mistake and not do the correct block at the time. We see Eric Almirola, kind of just riding, being there. And at this point, we see Denny Hamlin, who understands that, look, we are not going to be racing as a team at this point, Kyle Busch, and not necessarily in the future, but in this race, like, look, the rain is here. The race is going to end. I need to do something fast, okay? So we see Hamlin come out of line, understand that this is his chance. He moves up there by himself, okay? And yet again, uses the draft from the 18 and then jumps right down him. Like, it's not even fair how wildly impressive Denny Hamlin is and how selfishly he's racing. It's an absolute masterclass. Very similar to what he did at the race the previous year with no help, really. Like, yes, help in a sense of having a car behind him, helping him move him at the time, choosing when to move up, when to move down. But really, Hamlin by himself has moved up, gotten the lead, and most likely would have had the lead out of turn 2. But when we look at this race here, when we look at this corner, you already know what happens. The rain comes. But look, who's up here? Justin Haley has made some mistakes, fallen back. Eric Almirola wasn't aggressive enough when those situations came up, and he's running, in the top 10. He's running in the top 7, and you will see that's how Eric Almirola ends up finishing a lot in those positions. But we see that he's not taking advantage here. We see Hamlin right here. Like, it's absolutely crazy. We see Kyle Busch, who really no fault of his own, just wasn't aggressive, moved up, made a bad decision when moved up and made a bad decision. And then Hamlin went under him, entering 1, forced him back here. Ty Dillon, when we look at his finishes, and I'm so sorry, this is 720p. I don't know why NASCAR even uploads this stuff and it's not in 1080. Ty Dillon, when we look at his finishing positions, very consistent, always there, pretty much a discounted version of Eric Almirola. He's right here. We're not surprised by how these guys are finishing races. I would argue that predicting races, when you analyze each driver and you look at how they race, when you read the film, I think plate racing is more predictable, and combine that with understanding where ownership is going to go. And then for me personally, understanding that what's going to force situations like this to where certain guys are going to be up front, they'll most likely be up front in the end of the race. I want to try and not have those guys because they are very likely to be involved in a wreck later or at the end of a race. And I mean, there's so many layers of the plate racing that I absolutely love, that I think are absolutely important to understand. This is much more than just a random event here. Okay, so we have this wreck here, and let's fast forward to the actual restart. Which, yet again, if this was not the cutoff race, I don't see a reason why NASCAR even restarts this race. I really don't. I don't believe that they restarted at all, and that would have been very disappointing, because that was 40 grand that I was holding on to for a very long time. So let's go ahead and look at this last restart here and understand the difference of what you get from back marker drivers. Okay, we have Cody Ware, we have BJ McLeod, we have Beard Motorsports. I forgot who was necessarily in this car at the time. We have David Reagan right here. We have the other Spire entry or affiliate of Landon Castle back here. And notice, we have the RCR car, we have Penske car, we have Truex. We have, a bunch of wreck bucket of fucks with Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick. I forgot who this guy is at the time. I think this is Bowman back here. Notice the difference in speed. This is another example. Like when we talk about stacking guys from the back, but being aware that the back marker is not going to be able to do anything, okay? I can't think of a better visual example of this. I can't imagine Rick Ware racing these guys back here who have actual chances of winning a race excuse me, telling their driver to not go all out and to not race it hard. Okay, so at this point, we're able to see the discrepancy of speed between actual good teams and the guys who typically run the back. Okay, the Rick Ware cars, BJ McLeod, these guys back here. Notice the difference in speed. Very similar. This racing was very similar to the 2000s. Okay, we have cars at drastically different setup levels and speed levels here, able to pull away. And it's not just right here, but we see in future lap, I'm going to actually bump this up and go a bit faster here. We see that back marker, back marker, back marker, back marker, back marker. Okay, wrecked from a good team. And we're able to see the speed difference of what actual good cars can do. Granted, they are in a tandem draft, but we're able to see, like, BJ McLeod is not able to lead this line, okay? RCR Ingenuity by himself able to get around Truex. Now, Truex does have some right front damage, and he is racing for his playoff position here, but there's absolutely no reason outside of just lack of speed that BJ McLeod cannot move up here on this outside lane. You know, the Rick Ware cars got shuffled back. We have Reddick who has damage. We have Kyle Busch and Truex who have damage, and these two guys are still not able to get around here. 62 car, not able to get around him at this time. You know, this was very much a aerodynamic display of what these cars can do. There's fucking Ty Dillon on the apron. NASCAR, yet again, don't give a shit about safety. And we go 14 laps here. We're going to go ahead and skip forward a little bit. Look at this. Look at the pull away that we're having here. It's insane. This is not just them lining up here, because 77 is not on the bumper of the 3. We do have the bubble here that, you know, that the 3 is trying to maintain on the leader. But we're seeing that Truex, who has damage, is still able to pull away. We have really all the back marker cars back here being led by 2 damaged cars, and they are not able to move up the track. Or they're not able to move up until they really, really get in line here. And we see the leaders kind of separate. I mean, this is a long, at this point, I know I'm kind of fast forwarding here. At this point, the 62 understands that we're not going to get there leading. We all get single file here. We understand that the 18 is not going to be able to lead us up to the front. We understand that the Rick Ware cars, they're probably content running behind Kyle Busch right here. And so the 62, if I can remember who's in the 62, I got to back this up real fast. I am so sorry. It was Gregson. Gregson understands what he needs to do to get to the front. Blocking is a different story, but he understands that he needs to lead this group and this pack back up to the front, and that's exactly what Gregson does. Yet again, we've seen glimpses of this from Haley. We've seen it from Denny Hamlin. We've seen it from guys who understand what you have to do in these situations. Reagan understands what we need to do to ride here to be there at the end, you know, but he's not going to lead that pack up there. Gregson is a guy who is going to be aggressive, who reminds us of Stenhouse, who reminds us of Denny Hamlin to an extent. Guys who understand what you need to do to get up there. And so he goes up there. He leads that lane. You know, and we see, due to Gregson getting out front, due to guys who actually have good speed, Gregson is able to be pushed by the 8 car. And I don't know why we're doing this fucking onboard here, but Gregson's being able to push. He's able to be pushed by Reddick because he actually has a good car. He drives up there. He understands what he's doing. He understands that we need to get around, you know, Truex and his damage. We understand we need to get around this 77 car. We understand that we have a chance to get up there. And this is what I mean when we look at how Gregson performed in this situation with this car, and we look at guys back here who were in a similar situation, the back marker cars who, let's go out there and run. They just weren't able to get up there, you know? We'll fast forward a little bit. These guys kind of end up getting stupid, and we end up having, like, right here we're racing. We're breaking up the draft. We see that Truex is starting to lose the draft. We're starting to come around lap cars and stuff. And so at this point, we're able to see that the second pack slowly gets up there. Yet again, Cole Custer blows a tire. NASCAR doesn't care at all. And we see the backmark cars slowly run down Truex and slowly start getting more and more draft with 4 to go to get up to the leaders. Now, this is a situation where I think this not only shows skill needed at Talladega, it also shows skill needed in terms of what the teams bring, in terms of just what you can do, you know, like Reddick. We don't see Reddick as a fantastic plate racer. Yes, I believe he's won at Daytona in the Xfinity Series. But Penske, RCR, teams that actually have funding behind them able to get up there. And I believe, now yet again, these guys get stupid in race here. I believe that the only reason the second pack back here was able to start really running down time is because of the 77. I think if it was the Rick Ware cars leading the Rick Ware brigade, I don't see them getting this close in the last 2 laps. Now, granted, like I said, these 4 idiots, Austin Dillon, which NBC misses, congratulations. These 2 idiots, Dillon basically wrecks the 2, destroys the field. I mean, it's wild seeing the skits. And again, we have a replay with like 2 to go as the field is catching them. Very similar to the duels last year when J.J. Yaley was knocked out at the end. They just completely missed it. And so at this point, yet again, Rick Ware cars not able to really do anything. Gragson understands that he needs to be the one to make this happen because the 77 is just not going to have the aggression that we're going to need in this situation. Gragson buying his time, trying to get something to happen, understanding what to do. Reagan finally makes a move, understanding like, oh, this is my chance. We got 2 to go. We need to do something here. Able to get around his teammate, but not able to do much after that. Trying to make something happen here. Understands that he wouldn't be in the situation if the lead pack doesn't make a mistake and nearly kill themselves. Okay, so yet again, 2 to go. We've seen it from Reagan a lot. If you remember the 2020 Daytona 500 when Newman flips, very similar. David Reagan rode in line until that's a good and a bad thing about Reagan is that he always makes his moves literally in the last 2 laps. He's one of the best at making them, but I fully believe that Reagan makes moves far too late to be a winner in these races here. Really, really screws over Gragson here. We got 1 to go. He understands that we need to start going here. 77 starts blocking him. Kills any momentum we had. Understanding that we're just not going to be able to do this. You're not going to be able to get around the 2 RCR cars, despite the fact that the 8 has damage. It's just not going to happen here. And yeah, like there's so much. There's so many layers to the drivers at these super speedways that you just, I don't think people fully pay attention to, fully play, you know? And so, yeah, just something I've been wanting to bring up and talk about during the off season. Thank you for letting me talk about it. And yeah, expect quite a lot of videos to be coming out in the month of January leading up to the start of February, and consider joining the Patreon. I do appreciate you being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for letting me rant and talk about this stuff. And I will see you guys later.